All right. Welcome to the second half of Bass Tunes on KUCI 88.9 FM in Irvine. In the first half, of course, we talked about Faith No More and their fifth studio album, King for a Day, Fool for a Lifetime. Now we're going to be talking about Mortal Kombat 1. Before that, we got to let the wattage know. 199.8 watts we're currently broadcasting at. Listen to all those watts. We're going hard. You can hear it all around Orange County. Hopefully more places. Woo! I had a little bit of an interesting little kerfuffle because I realized I wasn't recording the first half of this. So at least second half, you're going to hear it in some crispy quality, right? But the first half, I was not happy about that. But thankfully, we have other ways to get the audio. So, yeah. Mortal Kombat 1. Okay, so last week, of course, I talked a little bit about my initial thoughts on it, the story, all that stuff, right? This is, of course, the newest fighting game in that super violent series that everybody knows because they go on YouTube and watch all the fatalities and watch all the very, very violent, gory stuff, right? It's very much like that still, even more so. But we're not here to really talk about that, right? We're here to talk about, first and foremost, the story mode, right? All right? Now, spoiler warning, okay? I'm going to preface it even more before we continue for this, but if you haven't played the story mode, haven't watched it, of Mortal Kombat 1, and if you want to, don't, it's okay. If you don't want to hear it, it's cool, right? Because I don't want people to get angry because they got spoiled on the story, even though you're going to end up stumbling onto them. But somehow I didn't, to an extent. I ended up finding a little bit, but I didn't really know where the story was going to go, so I was surprised too. There's a lot of interesting things. All right. So the story mode. A little bit ago, I ended up talking about MK. I think the music or something around those lines. And I went on a really long tangent about it, right? I went on and sort of explained in a little bit of a long rant, as I like to do sometimes, the history of the story, what's going on, because you have a bunch of different times and things like that, timeline resets and new people and time travel and the Keeper of Time. Okay, so let's just... The first thing you need to know about the story mode is you kind of need to know what is going on in the previous games to have a full understanding, right? And I'm not saying you really need to, they don't explain anything, but they kind of don't. So if you're curious about it, and they try to explain things, and they do it relatively well as a sort of introducing characters to a new audience and things like that, because of course the whole point of this game is that it's supposed to be a bit of a reboot of the story and the universe of Mortal Kombat. But it's not a total reset, because although the universe is new, what happened previously isn't totally different. The consequences of the previous game have extended into this new universe. So we need to start with one thing, right? What happened in the last game? Real quick. Essentially, I guess we have to go back to the ninth one. Okay, so the first 8 games sort of go on with the story, right? And then there's this Battle of Armageddon. And whoever gets to the top of this pyramid and defeats this giant fire monster named Blaze ends up having all the powers. Because basically, all the fighters in this Mortal Kombat universe have gotten too powerful and there needs to be some sort of reset, right? Some ancient prophecy or something stupid like that. So, in the 9th game, we start in the beginning, the first reboot, the one that's just called Mortal Kombat 2011. It ends up that one of the main villains from the story, Shao Kahn, the big, bulky, armored emperor dude, he ends up winning. Bit of a retcon from Armageddon, but who cares? The Thunder God, the protector of Earthrealm, a demigod who has a lot of powers, lightning powers, whatever, called Raiden, he ends up sending a message with this special amulet back to Raiden, saying this one phrase, he must win. So past Raiden, essentially, in a way, the timeline splits into 2. Or it's like a tape recorder overwriting it. Essentially, we go back in time, and all the events from here on out are redone again, but Raiden has this new information. He messes up astronomically. He does all the wrong things. A lot of the people who weren't supposed to die do die. A lot of people are zombies now or revenants controlled by evil sorcerers. It doesn't matter, right? A lot of stuff happens. 10th game, another person who was in the previous game, Shinnok, whatever, it doesn't matter. 11th game, it turns out there's another bigger threat, the Titans. there is somebody who has been controlling time this entire time, controlling the timeline, and basically a god of the universe. And her name is Kronika, and she's crazy because she wants perfect balance in the world. But if the scale tips too much in good or evil, she doesn't want it. She needs more evil in this current universe. And it turns out that the person making everything too good is the Earthrealm champion, the guy who wins Mortal Kombat in the beginning games, Liu Kang, Bruce Lee, Liu Kang himself, right? The man, the myth, the legend, the great Shaolin monk. So, she tries to get rid of him, pulls people from the past, and it goes into this huge thing, right? Certain people take over, like certain people in the present go away, and the past people replace them. Anyways, there's this giant battle with the controller of time. Liu Kang wins, becomes a fire god, the god of time and the god of fire, or keeper of time and god of fire, right? And he kills Kronika. Unfortunately, there is this crown on her head that allows her to control this hourglass. The hourglass allows her to reshape time. If he doesn't have this crown, everything is ruined. So he has to go back in time again and partner up with the evil sorcerer from the first game, Shang Tsung, in a beautiful performance by Cary something Tagawa. I forgot his full name. He was the actor in the movie. He was amazing. Your soul is mine. I did not do a good job. It's amazing. Anyways, at the end of this is the DLC, Aftermath. At the end of this, it turns out Shang Tsung, as you expect, would betray because he's evil. So what happens? Well, you, as the player, get to make a choice. Do you want Liu Kang or Shang Tsung to win? And when you do that, an entirely different ending happens. Not really. You fight off whoever you didn't pick. You fight against whoever you didn't pick, and then you become the keeper of time. So either Liu Kang does or Shang Tsung does. Evil or good. So in MK1, Liu Kang won because he's the good guy, right? He recreates the timeline, and a lot of things have changed, but a lot of them have stayed the same, and that's a really interesting running theme. Certain characters and alliances sort of happen differently, but not really. I'll give you an example. The Ice Guy, Sub-Zero. Since the second game, at least in the original timeline, he wasn't the Sub-Zero you played in the first game. He was his younger brother. The older one, Bihan, became a revenant, evil dude, noob, cybot, whatever. Kuai Liang takes up the mantle. In this game, it's not that. There was Scorpion as well, who hates Sub-Zero because the old Sub-Zero either killed him or his wife. I don't remember. Anyways, turns out Scorpion and Sub-Zero are brothers in this one, right? So that's crazy. And the other ninja guy from this faction called Smoke is now Czech. He's Czech. Randomly, he's Czech. No, but he's cool. He's like the adopted brother. He's really cool. Anyways, a lot of other stuff happens. Essentially, the main difference is this. Liu Kang reshapes the timeline for an era of peace. But in order to make the villains not these all-powerful monsters, he sort of relegates them. Shao Kahn, the Deadly Emperor, he's now a general. Shang Tsung, the evil sorcerer of deadly magical powers, he has no magic. So instead, he's essentially a snake oil conman because he's still evil for whatever reason. And this is where the game starts. You're Shang Tsung, you're watching him, snake oil salesman, and some guy confronts him. Anyways, it doesn't matter, right? He gets approached by somebody in a hood, and it looks like Kronika, the evil villain from the last game, the Keeper of Time, who we thought we had destroyed. And she's like, I'm going to give you powers. So we fast forward some time. There's a new tournament of Mortal Kombat. A lot of people sort of end up getting certain things happen to them. Like there's a Kenshi guy. He's a blind swordsman. He loses his eyesight again, right? Again. Let me think what else. But Shang Tsung ends up having magic powers at this point by this weird Kronika person, right? And there's another evil sorcerer who in previous games they teamed up as the Deadly Alliance, and then again, and here again, the Deadly Alliance is back. So they're essentially they're building like these soul gauges in order to sort of boost their power and invade the Earth realm. Because there's Earthrealm, which is like our Earth, and then like I guess the solar system or something like that, and then Outworld, which is like a random, just a bunch of different areas you have to go through portals. Anyways, it's dumb. A bunch of other people show up from the previous games, right? But this isn't like a timeline coming back and resetting. It's essentially, shall we say, like they're just in the universe, right? Shang Tsung is sort of duping them, right? The Bihan Sub-Zero guy is like, oh, I'm going to go with Shang Tsung. So now Scorpion and Smoke are like, what did he do? So now the clan that was sort of a rival clan to the Sub-Zero clan called the Shiraiyu, or I guess that's how they pronounce it. It's probably different because it's a Japanese name. It ends up not being that way, right? He ends up reforming it in a different way. But that's besides the point, right? Let's see. There's just a lot. So Evil Sorcerer, they do the tournament. Raiden is now the champion instead of Liu Kang. Liu Kang's the god now. He's the protector of Earthrealm and no longer the god of time, right? What ends up happening is this, okay? It turns out, and here's the big twist that I was really not a fan of. They got these deadly powers, and then Shang Tsung shows up, right? And he's like, oh, well, I have this army of people, and we're going to use this portal to invade Earthrealm, and they stop it, right? But it turns out this. Another Shang Tsung shows up. Another one showed up, right? And it turns out that the Shang Tsung is now the god of time. So basically, it's stupid. And I know this is really convoluted. I don't have the story in front of me. I'm just remembering it off the top of my head, right? When in the last game, DLC, whatever, when you choose who to win, both outcomes happened. The good guy won, but the fight was so chaotic that the bad guy, that the timeline split into two, and the bad guy ended up becoming the ruler of time in his timeline, and now he is going to use his powers. So the good guys get an idea. Let's go and get other timelines. Could there be other ones? Why would it only split into two? So Liu Kang has to go get his fire powers. He has to get his Keeper of Time powers again. And he has to sacrifice his life as the protector of Earthrealm and trainer and just normal dude into being the Keeper of Time again. Well, here's what happens, right? They do that. It turns out that after this fight, there was like 1 billion different variations of the game, of how the story went. So now, every single character you can think of in some random multiverse or timeline, whatever you want to call it, is the Keeper of Time. And they all look different, and they all have these weird morph variants. So after this story where you're just going through multiple characters and just sort of, dealing with like outworld, like different group politics and fighting and sort of, that sort of stuff and like animosity and more grounded story, at the last act, it essentially turns into this giant, oh, guess what? There's a bunch of timelines. Okay, you're going to go pick a character because now at the end of the game, it says choose your final warrior. So now you have to pick a random character out of like 1 billion. Well, no, every person. So you have to pick a certain character, race up the same pyramid as the Armageddon one, fight a bunch of clones, and then defeat Shang Tsung and Quan Chi's Deadly Alliance. And that's it. The game's over. And then the post-credit scene rolls around. Spoiler alert. And another guy who we haven't really gotten much word of, Havoc, who shows up in this game, but he's not. It turns out he's the big villain. And he's going to invade the timelines. So now the new game is, instead of, oh, okay, so we're done with this whole time travel thing, we're just going to make a new story with new villains, old threats are coming back. No, it turns out instead of like the Dragon King Onaga or someone cool that Liu Kang didn't think about because they haven't been in this new timeline, or like the NRS era, like the 9X and 11 era of games. No, it's just going to be more timeline. And I'm not really a fan of it personally, but I'm also kind of amazed at it. So now they can just do whatever they want. They wrote themselves into a corner, they snapped their fingers, and they said, oh, guess what? There's 1 billion different outcomes. Anybody can do anything. To me, it's like partially lazy writing, but I kind of like it. It's weird. A lot of the people who are not a fan of that are going to hate it. They are going to hate this so much. I can't even fathom how much they are going to dislike this. But at the same time, I'm like, you know what? Let's just do it. Let's just do it. It's just a lot, man. So then, it turns out the DLC got leaked. The story DLC already got leaked. And it's like more timeline stuff. So we have to just fight a bunch of different Titans because we thought we defeated them. But no. There's going to be an infinite amount of threats until some random MacGuffin shows up in like 3 games from now and says, snap your finger. Okay, we're done. Let's go back to the beginning. I don't know. It's like, are we really going to do every single 3 games? We have a weird story about timelines, then it gets reset again. Is this where we're going? Because what I thought would have been interesting was this. Liu Kang, God of Time, whatever, tries to redo the timeline and makes everybody good. Or at least tries to make the bad people not have power. But every single thing that he thought would happen, that he tried to stop, ends up happening itself. The tagline of this game is, it's in our blood. My thought of it is basically, you can't change history. People are the way they are supposed to be. They will end up forming into that, and no matter how many repetitions of the timeline you do, you can find that out. But then again, I don't know if I want Liu Kang to be the villain. He's the good guy in this one. I don't know. There is also like weird romance low-key stuff in the 11th game that gets expanded upon in 1, and I screamed out of the top of my lungs. I was like, yes, let's go. And then my mom was like, Adian, what's going on? And I'm like, I don't know, dude. I'm just playing Mortal Kombat, man. The story itself was great. If you don't know the story, it's like it's an interactable movie. You watch these cutscenes that look really good, and they have like some cinematography, and they're doing some cool stuff with some cool story that 99% of people probably wouldn't care about unless you're like me and you know a lot of this stuff. Maybe not super in depth like a lot of these Turbo fans, but I know a little bit more than a lot of people, right? I'm a huge fan of these games. So it's like you watch this and like, oh, cool, this guy shows up. Oh, yeah, fan service, yeah. And then it's like, and then every few fights you change characters. You pick a new, you get tossed into a new character. Then you go ahead and play them for a few fights, and it sort of seamlessly switches from, from pre-rendered cutscene to fight in engine. There's more in-engine stuff this time in 1, like it's actually rendered in real time, like the ending sort of sequences. A lot of it is, although they sort of carefully chose certain scenes that your chosen character wouldn't show up in, so it wouldn't have that, so they would just have to pre-render it and not have to render it on your computer. Yeah, I do have some criticisms, though. One is probably the PC version. I have this huge sort of rant about, do I buy it on PC or PlayStation? I bought it on PC, right? Because I don't want to buy a PS5 because it's like $500. I don't want to do that. But here's what ends up happening. The story mode 1, the audio quality it's not good. Obviously not the worst in the world. It doesn't sound like an 8 kilobyte thing you'd get from you download off like a free MP3 website from like 2000 on your Nokia little brick phone, right? But instead, you end up having this, it's just worse quality, and it's weird because the second it switches to in-engine rendering, it's like the audio quality is fine. So it's like, did they intentionally compress all of this? And then I looked at the file size, and it's like, okay, the recommended file size, like it's going to be like 115 something gigabytes or maybe even more on consoles. It's like 95 on PC. They did some extra compression, I guess, for lower spec platforms and lower storage. But I'm like, I have a 3080. I put a lot of money into this graphics card. It's in like computer. I'm supposed to run these games with the highest quality, super smooth, buttery, crisp graphics. I want it to look good. But of course, the PC version is made by a different studio, and maybe updates are going to come like once every few weeks instead of right as they happen. They're going to be delayed. If that happens, I am going to switch to the PS5 or Xbox Series version if I can scrounge together money for that. Or get it for Christmas or something like that for myself. I don't know. But then also there's like weird lag and stutter, which I've never seen in any other story mode. I think in 11 they didn't have that problem. Maybe it's because I played I played 11 originally on PlayStation and I bought it again on PC, I think. Or maybe vice versa. But like I ended up buying that game 3 times. PS4, PC, and Switch. I'm not buying it on Switch this time. If you've seen the articles, if you have a Nintendo Switch and nothing else, don't buy this game. It's horrible on the Switch. One of the main single-player modes, you get the tutorial area, and then the rest of it's coming soon. The game runs horrible. It takes like almost a minute to load in, and the way they designed the loading in this game is that it's supposed to be seamless with like a SSDs for like the new consoles. So it's like you pick your characters, they like sort of clash with each other, they say dialogue, and then immediately they burst into the whatever area you chose, like the fight starts. It's a lot. Instead, you just sort of watch them awkwardly stare for like 40 seconds, which I've had that problem too on PC because not everyone has an SSD or as good of a computer as I do, which makes sense, right? It's a PC game. Not everybody's going to have an SSD. It's not as Unified as in, let's say, PlayStation. But that's besides the point, right? It's just, I have my criticisms, but, generally I enjoyed it. Other than that, I mean, some quick thoughts. The gameplay, I love it. It's amazing. It's super fun. I've never spent this much time just practicing combos and crazy stuff. You can get half health combos with 1 bar of meter out of 3. You can do all sorts of just insane stuff for no reason. Although the one thing I'm not a big fan of is that it might be one-touch death, which essentially you let them hit you, you're dead, or you're like in a fighting game. We're saying a lot of things here. Let's see, lag. I wonder. I'm curious. I might ask Chris if Lag Radio talked about Starfield last week. I hope that one will. I do want to listen to that. Maybe it's online. Because I want to curious his thoughts on Starfield. I'm only saying this off topic. I'm not going to spoil it, but I'm basically like, I went to this really big pivotal point in the story of Starfield where this big decision happens and then you have this big consequence afterwards. And I was like, I'm not a fan of the consequence. It turns out too that if I knew it right and used used some mod so I don't lose my achievements, because if you use the console on PC you can go into like the data command line console whatever in the game and just sort of modify everything to your liking, so you can sort of game what outcome you want. Although when I realized that, I was too far in, like I didn't save close enough to that mission, so I was like, whatever, I don't care. The story's interesting, but like I feel like, I don't know. I'm not gonna spoil it, but I guess you haven't played Starfield. I also spoilers towards the end. Like the point of it is sort of like a weird multiverse thing. Like the whole crux of the story. It's like, again, this weird multiverse timeline thing. So I just sort of like threw my hands up when I saw that, because I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, we had Mortal Kombat with this. Okay, so it turns out there's an infinite amount of different characters who are all the keepers of time, and they're all going to start invading your timeline because Liu Kang, because you're the good guys and the bad guys are still around, and that's the story unless they change something up. And Starfield, which is like, okay, well, it's New Game Plus. You can reset with a new timeline or whatever. I don't know. It's a lot. I keep saying this, but it's just like this. Stories get so convoluted. I thought MK was going to be less convoluted, but isn't. But the gameplay itself is amazing. Although I feel like a lot of the quality of life features, unfortunately, have taken a bit of a downgrade from Mortal Kombat 11. And also, a lot of the same stuff that was there just doesn't seem as nice now of something like Street Fighter 6, because that game was sort of like an innovation for fighting games in terms of accessibility and quality of life. You don't really have something like that of MK. But then again, there is a more, I don't even know what the better like single-player mode is. World Tour Invasions. Probably World Tour, because World Tour is like you run around a city and challenge people to fights and do stuff like that. Invasions is like you just sort of like go to fights and do infinite fights of random variations, and it gets super convoluted. And it's a huge grind too, by the way. There's a lot more cosmetics in MK than Street Fighter, and you don't have to really pay for them, but they're an insane grind, which I don't know if I have the time for. Oh, also, you could probably just use an unlock tool for that, which I did for MK11 because I got so tired of grinding. Yeah. It's a lot. My throat hurts a little bit. I haven't had much water. But yeah, I think that might be it for this episode of Base Tunes. I like Mortal Kombat 1. I'm playing a lot of it, and I'm going to continue playing a lot of it. But I did stop to hopefully beat Starfield. Oh, yeah, and I also beat Cyberpunk's campaign finally. I was like right before the last mission where you have to choose how you're going to choose the ending. And then I got there, and I stopped. And then literally a year later, because there's this second update coming out, there's an update 2.0, which came out like yesterday or the day before, which essentially totally revamps a lot of the mechanics, and you essentially get reset on a lot of things, so you might as well make a new save. And there's also a DLC coming out. I'll say this. I feel like 2023 has been an insane year for gaming. I've said that once again. And movies and media. And there's, I don't know, 2023, it's like we sort of made it out the trenches pandemic-wise. Other than, again, we have actors striking, so we're going to have less content out. But hey, shout out to the strikers, right? Support them. Support the union. Support them. They need their fair due. They need their fair share. But yeah. Cyberpunk was cool. Interesting. But that's besides the point. Again, this is it. We're done. Thank you all so much for listening to Base Tunes on KUCI 88.9 FM in Irvine. My name has been Aryan Salimi, right? Right. If you want to follow me on Instagram and check out more of the Bass Tune stuff, we post the episode at least a day beforehand. You can check it out on BASEDTUNESKUCI on Instagram. All right. And if you want to check out my website, you can go ahead and do that with, what is it? BASEDARI.com. Yeah. Okay. Let's see here. I'm trying to get something to play you guys off of, but I'm not even sure what to do, you know? The timing thing's interesting. It seems that we're getting some soundproofing done in the studio, so a lot of the stuff, at least for today, has been remote. Like Georgia, I'll say this, Georgia's show, the one before then, she was talking about an interview I had. I didn't have an interview. I think that was a Virum interview. There's no interview. As far as you can tell, we didn't have an interview. I don't have one yet. I might have one the next couple of weeks, but I think next week I don't have anything planned, although maybe something might come up. But let's see. Yeah, but with the next quarter, we're going to have some crazy stuff. Also, one more thing. I forgot to say this earlier. We have a giveaway. From the station for one pair of tickets to Thundercat October 5th at the Greek Theater in Los Angeles. I'm in communication with them. We're going to have more giveaways coming up soon. But if you want to check that out, go to KUCI FM on Instagram. That's our station's Instagram, not my Instagram. And if you want to apply, go to the link in our bio, right? You want to sign up, enter a chance to win the giveaway, whatever. Follow the Instagram, fill out the form, and then tag one person you'd like to go with. And once you do that, we will randomly draw you in a week, I believe. Yeah, I think I posted it yesterday. We'll probably end up having that again. Yeah, I'll post that then. And good luck on that. I'm going to play Get Out by Faith No More a little bit. That's the song that we introed the show with. And then we're going to move on to Anne. Actually, we got Jazz for 30 minutes, and then we got Anne Her. And then at 6, we got Chris Lag Radio live show. It's going to be fun. I love Chris's show. I need to listen to it more. So stay on the air for me, for Anne, and Chris, and Dennis. We got a pretty stacked lineup. All right? Play a little bit of Get Out, and we're out of here. Hope you guys have enjoyed this episode of Bass Tunes. I love you all so much. Stay based. All right, partner. Keep on rolling, baby. You know what time it is. It's Friday. I'm going to have a lot of fun tonight. Bye.